when I give talks about play, about a third of the audience is going to say, but I hate playing with my kid. What do you say to that? Like the parents were like, I want to buy into this, but like, I hate this.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons we wrote the book. And when we were pitching it, we were like, look, here are all these problems in the world, and post-COVID parents worry about developmental stuff. Play does all of these things that we need them to do. But the problem is parents either tell us, I hate playing, or I don't know what to do. Like, okay, fine, I'll sit on the floor, but then what, right? And so, and listen, I will admit there were times, and my boys loved to play with action figures, and they just wanted me to slam them together, and I was so bored. It was so boring sometimes. And I tend to be I'm very much like, I like being productive, and that did not feel productive to me. It felt like I just was trying to get through it, right? Okay, so here's what I would say. Number one, do not shame yourself. It is totally common and typical and normal for you to not enjoy play for a couple of reasons. One is, let's just acknowledge the tremendous responsibility of being a parent in these days and times without a lot of help, with the mental loads that we carry. And particularly if you're a single parent, that's even more so the case. But we have this tremendous mental load. We have so many things to take care of. And then we also have Instagram telling us that if we don't cut our children's lunches into woodland-shaped creatures, we're failing as a parent. And so we have all of these things that were like on us, right? So sitting and playing, what it requires is stopping the world and being present. And so that's really hard when we have this ticking list of things to do that feels urgent. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is your child's brain is different than yours. Your brain has developed as an adult, and so you have less access to the imaginative, creative stuff that creates dopamine that is really about motivation to do more of it, right? So we don't get the same kind of dopamine from play that our children get. So it makes sense that you wouldn't want to do a lot of it, or that's not that fun for you. However, I will say that if you're not enjoying it, it's probably a sign that you need more of it, because it's a protective factor for us as well. And I see, and you probably see this too, Tammy, families that get into these stress cycles where the child's behavior is really challenging, whether that's because there's something diagnostic there, or just because of developmental phase that they're going through, or because family life is really stressful. They don't get enough sleep. They're overscheduled. Parents aren't getting enough sleep. They're overscheduled. And then there's not a lot of time for play. And so there's not as much connection and delight that's happening, which then leads to more behavior problems. So one of the things I would say is, if you can see the playtime with your child as productive and important in being preventative to make the rest of life with your child during the next day go so much better, because they're having that time of connectedness and releasing some of these things that you were talking about. It can help you feel like it's a valuable use of your time. And then in the book, and we can talk about some of the strategies, like, okay, so this morning I had this with you, at 8 a.m. my time. I have a kid who's homesick. The dog got into some trash overnight, so there was food everywhere. I'm going straight from this to two other things. So and so it's like, and I had to fill out the form for school. And I'm thinking about all of this morning as I'm rushing. And I'm thinking, okay, how would I be playful? Like, how do I access that if my kid's not cooperating or whatever? And so what we talk about in the book are strategies that can literally be done in seconds, less than a minute, that actually do not require a lot of mental load, a lot of thinking, a lot of creativity. And once you start doing these and seeing how incredibly effective and helpful and actually fun they are, you're going to want to do more of it.
Okay, let's hear an example.
Okay, so one of my favorite ones is called Bring Emotions to Life. Okay, now let me just say before I say that, Tammy, obviously what you and I are talking about, what the book is about parent-child play, or in the professional circles, dyadic play, a dyad between two people, so a parent and child in this situation. Now, that is not to say that all play should be with parent and child. Free, unstructured play where your child is playing on their own or playing with peers, or especially outside of nature, kids need more and more and more of that. So this is not to take the place of that. Kids need that too. So this is really about how you play with your kid and what that looks like. Okay, so my favorite strategy, I think, at least it changes every week, is bring emotions to life. So I'll give an example. My son, about 4 years old, loved tying knots onto things. So he would have like a rope and he would tie it onto a doorknob, and then he would tie the other side to the top of a play castle. And he loved action figures. So he would have an action figure down on the castle, and he would hand me an action figure up by the top of the doorknob where the rope was tied. And he'd be like, Mom, get this guy down onto the castle. You got to get him down here to come help fight the other guys. Something like that. Okay. Now I could easily, so remember, play is supposed to be fun. So I'm joining in, I'm present, I'm giving him my full attention, even if it's only going to be 5 or 10 minutes. I'm not also on my phone. I'm really there with him. I might have a baby on my hip too, but I'm there, I'm present. So I could just hook the action figures guy's arm onto the rope and go, and that would be great. I could do that. Fine, I'm joining the play. But what if in that moment I took this 10-second opportunity to bring emotions to life? So what I can do is I can say, but I've never gone down one of these ropes before. I'm not sure I can do it. I'm kind of scared. So all I'm doing, and that's also symbolic distance, I'm introducing an emotion that would be appropriate for that situation to the character. So, and then I pause. Now, my kid wants my guy down on the castle, so he's got to come up. So not only is he hearing emotional language, he also has to come up with an emotional solution. And so then he has to come up with something. So he has to say, I'm going to send a guy up to show you the way. He's going to help you down. So now he's come up with a solution that's like, oh, when someone's in a situation, they're not sure about it, they can rely on someone else to help them or show them the way. So now he's come up with a relational solution. All of those kinds of repeated experiences generalize over time, get mapped in the brain, so that later, if he's in a situation where he's not sure about something, he can ask for help, or he sees another kid who's maybe unsure. He can go like, hey, come on, I'll show you how to get over there, whatever. So I'm just introducing emotions to life. I'm also using another strategy there, and it's so you can see that took seconds. It was really fast, and you just come up with an emotion. You don't have to do a lot of thinking. Another strategy I also used there in that moment is called make yourself a mirror. And make yourself a mirror is basically joining with whatever your child is doing, either with your face, your voice, or your body. So when my kid was like, bring the guy down here, I was like, okay, hold on. I'm coming, but I'm nervous. So you can see that my tone of voice matched what my kid's was in that moment. Another time, if your kid is using a pirate voice, you can use a pirate voice. If your kid's jumping up and down with their face, their eyes wide and their hands are flying up, you can just pretend to jump up and down with your eyes wide and your hands flying up. You're not copying them exactly. If you do your body, voice, and face, it might feel like copying, and that can be annoying, especially as kids get older. But when we mirror something that they're doing with our body, face, or voice, it lets them feel seen, and it also creates all kinds of literally neural synchronicity, so that our brains are in sync with each other. And I just finished going through all the literature that's looking at brain imaging called hyperscanning, that looks at multiple brains at once doing the same thing or having the same kind of sensory input. And what they're finding is that when brains are in synchrony with each other, you see more efficient problem solving, more cooperation, more feelings of connection. So we literally are forging bonds with our children and helping them feel known and seen by this tiny little piece of play.
Are we talking about the mirror neuron system, like the motor neuron system? Is that part of this?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. The mirror neuron system is something that's still a fairly recent discovery. For those of you who don't know, it was originally discovered at a lab in Italy with these monkeys who were eating, and they could map which neurons were firing. And then the researchers got hungry and started snacking. And even though the monkey wasn't eating, the monkey's neurons fired by watching the human eat. And so then UCLA did a bunch of stuff, and they have discovered that we have neurons in our brains, our motor strip that you mentioned, and other places where we have these neurons that mirror each other's states. So basically, if I go to take a drink of water, and it's not just random movements, it's movements or actions of intention. So if I see you taking a drink of water, my neurons will fire as if I'm taking a drink of water too. So the idea there is that we are held captive to one another's nervous systems. We influence each other. And I know as you're hearing that, parents are probably like, oh crap, I don't want my kids mirroring the kind of stress and anxiety I have. But it's a reminder to us that we are the leaders in our family, right? And our kids do look to us to create meaning, literally even in their own brains. But I will say, just to be scientifically accurate, there's a lot of debate still in the scientific community about what mirror neurons do, what they explain. We do think it gives rise to language acquisition, empathy. The mirror neuron system looks different in people with autism. So there's still some debate about that. But yes, that's what I believe is happening, is that the mirror neuron system is creating synchrony from brain to brain.
Yeah. What I think is really interesting, and as a play therapist, I can tell parents this is what happens when you go. Now, I know you and Dan say name it to tame it, right? A lot of kids, especially kids with trauma, avoidant attachment styles, like kids who have like come from hard places, you can't name the feeling. They will shut right down. Like they're not receptive to this. But if you can name the characters' feelings through the play, I promise you what those characters are going through is a reflection of some emotional conflict that has gone on in the child within the last few weeks. So if we can get alongside what you're talking about is mirroring, so we mirror the character's feelings, the child gradually starts to accept their own emotions. It normalizes it. They internalize like, oh, that's okay. That character feels that way. And I promise you, eventually they start talking about their feelings too. But it sets the stage symbolically for you to say and help organize their emotional experiences in a safe way. That's what I heard from and read in your section on mirroring with the body, face, and voice, because done through symbolism, kids can accept it. If you go and touch, sometimes those kids, you touch the emotion, you name it, and you're like, you're feeling this. They're like, no, I'm not. And they'll pull away if they're not used to that.
Right. And you said that so beautifully, Tammy, and you're right, especially trauma often doesn't have words. And it's name it to tame it, where we're just talking about our feelings, is very top down, meaning I need a prefrontal cortex, I need good language, and I need good cause and effect so that I can tell a story in a linear linguistic way. And that's a pretty sophisticated thing, right? And so a lot of trauma, or even emotion, is more bottom up and without words. It's really in our bodies. And I'm sure many of your audience are familiar with Bessel van der Kolk's beautiful book called The Body Keeps the Score, that a lot of times our memories and our experiences, whether they're traumatic or not, are actually stored in our bodies and in our really how our body processes information in our whole nervous system, not just in our brain and our skull. Our nervous system's actually throughout our whole body. And so play and movement are actually bottom up, meaning body up. And so we're talking about the lower structures of the brain that are not connected to necessarily words. It's more sensations, feelings, images, those kinds of things. And play is very much a bottom up thing. And then when we bring emotions to life and some of these other strategies in the book, we're also bringing in a top down process. And so what that's doing is it's helping our children's brains get integrated, which is the whole theory and approach to the whole brain child, which is how do we help our children's brains become integrated? And many of you who maybe have read it, and even if you haven't, we use the analogy of like the downstairs brain, like the first story of a building, and the upstairs brain. And that what we want to be happening during development is a really sturdy, strong staircase that's built between the upstairs and downstairs brain so that they can access top-down processing, which helps them pause before action, control impulses, be mindful, be empathetic, have insight, be able to name emotions, all of these things that are a huge sort of foundation for social and emotional intelligence as well as mental health. And so play is incredibly integrating and helps build that staircase. But a lot of it is bottom up first, like you're talking about, and then eventually they can name and connect it, which is incredible because then you have a 3 or 4-year-old who eventually, instead of pushing his sister when she gets close to his block tower, can say, I don't want her to push down my tower. Can you keep her over there for a minute? Instead of just pushing her. So we start kind of then having those skills generalize to much more pro-social behaviors as well.
Yeah. So